Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Zita's Healthy Beginnings World of Women podcast. Today is June the 27th, and I'm so glad to have all of us here. I say welcome to everyone. I had actually invited people from across the world, and hopefully that people are just joining us. And this evening, we're talking a whole lot about what it means to be a woman. Actually, this week I was kind of involved in so many other things, trying to make sure that hopefully people are just joining us, that women be, the importance of women, the importance of making sure that we all know what it means to be a woman, what women are doing, the challenge that we all are having, when it comes to women doing what they need to do. I think we're having a whole lot of, I'm not sure what is going on here. To be a woman, what women are doing, yes.
Zeta, I think you need to either mute or shut off your tab that YouTube is on.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I think we're having Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Something was going on. So can you hear me clearly right now?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. So I was starting to say that I had invited a few people across the globe, just to let them know, be on the loop about what the situation is here in the United States. Recently, I just got an email message talking about what has been happening in the legislative platform, how we have really been collectively channeling our energy towards fighting this battle that all of us are aware of, that is really impacting women's life and their babies. And that is the increase in high mortality in the United States. I know that this is a global problem, but what is so sad about it is that we live in a country that I would consider as the richest country in the world, a country that has everything that one can think of, be it economical or even social. And you talk about health. One would actually presume that the United States got it all. And actually we should, because we got the most brilliant people on the planet in this country. But what is going on is this high mortality and infant rate is like pathetic. It shouldn't be. We have been trying to track what it is. What is actually causing this problem? A lot of people have really put in their time, their energy, their finances, just to see what could be done. And the email I got, like I was sharing, was about collective endeavor, collective effort that people are making all over the United States, especially in women's group. We don't really know how many people are getting these messages, and what is the reaction. Some people are reacting, some people are responding in their own local, communities. But we are all trying to make sure that the synergy of this whole effort is going to get to Washington, D.C., and have all the powers that are to start acting on it, to start supporting programs, to start supporting activities, to start supporting individuals and groups of individuals who are really committed to making sure that women are being educated better about their own health, and that women are being better prepared when they are looking at raising families, that women know what it means, to be a family builder, which we all know naturally women are being raised, created to be like that. In a lot of communities, that's not happening. It is not happening because women have not been given the power. They haven't been given the opportunity to explore their potentials. There are a whole lot of potentials women are capable of doing, bringing to the table. Sometimes most of them are not even invited, but their topics are being discussed in different, panels and different forums, but women are not engaged. The question is why? Does anyone know why a woman is not engaged to talk about her own problem? A woman is not engaged to talk about her own family. Why are we allowing people to make decisions that really impede our own progress? Why are we doing that? We know that a lot of women are out there struggling, looking for any outlet to share how they feel, to share what is going on in their own lives and the lives of their family. But a lot of them are not getting the attention they need. So today, I am using this platform, as always, to bring that awareness again and to challenge all of us to do whatever we can in our own small corner to create activities that will begin to address these high mortality issues that we're talking about here in the United States. Globally, I have been meeting via Zoom, WhatsApp, with other women and some men who are really as concerned as we women are, because it is really no longer acceptable to see a woman, a young woman, going in to have her baby and not coming out. In fact, most of them pass away and their babies pass away. It is a sad story. It makes me mad because it should not be. Childbirth, pregnancy, childbearing, all of this are all the gifts from God. They are natural gifts from God. All animals on this planet take care of their own when they're pregnant, during pregnancy, and after pregnancy. Our own community of animals are the only ones who are not really measuring up like we should. The question is why? What can we do to really make this happen? How can we encourage one another, challenge each other to come up with all the skills and talents that we all have? We have them to start building communities, to start building communities of awareness, communities of hope, communities of support. We know the three main critical issues we're facing, women are facing in particular. One of them is the poor nutrition. A lot of women are undernourished. A lot of them are undernourished. Most of the food we get in all the stores, grocery stores, are not healthy enough. So the question is, what are our options here? Is there any way we can begin to help women to be aware of it and find alternatives, like growing their own in their own little communities? Is there any way we can start doing that? I'm just throwing that all out there and asking each one of us to think about it. And the other thing is lack of transportation. Yes, we think here in the United States, this lack of transportation is a global issue. But I am focusing right here because I know if we get it right here, it's going to really trickle down to the rest of the world. And I know we can if we really are willing to do that. So there is this lack of transportation. A lot of women don't have access to transportation that will really bring them to where the healthcare is located. And what happens? They get appointments to go visit their doctors, and they don't go. They simply don't go. And that is why we need doulas. Doulas, you ask me, who are they? Doulas are those that accompany women who accompany other women when they are pregnant and when they're ready to give birth in the hospitals or birthing homes or even in their own homes. And after they have their babies, they also accompany them. What do? They help to talk to, they are the intermediary between the woman and the woman's family and the healthcare system. What they do is they talk to them to make sure that this woman has the transportation she needs, whether it be for herself seeking medical assistance or for herself and her baby. So we know that these are critical issues. A lot of people are not paying attention to it. We all think that everybody has all they need. No, they don't, especially women. A lot of women are suffering in silence. Some of them even juggle 3-4 jobs while they're pregnant, while they're breastfeeding, while they're still nurturing families and nurturing, the community. They are still busy doing other things. So what happens? The woman is so used that she doesn't take care of herself anymore. And we are beginning also to identify a lot of mortality after birth. And why is that? It is because some women have little ones before they get pregnant. And while they're pregnant, they're still taking care of those little ones. There's no help from anywhere. Some of them don't have the insurance, healthcare insurance we're talking about. And some that have the insurance we're talking about is being cut off. We are fighting to make sure that a woman after pregnancy still gets healthcare insurance for at least 1 year. Why 1 year? I'm glad you asked. So postpartum impacts that women suffer after pregnancy goes far beyond 6 months after birth. So it goes way into 1 year that they have their babies. So we have found that out. Statistics has proven that, research has affirmed it. The question is, how do we let people in authority legislations really get hold of the reality and begin to help us and begin to talk about it and really put it into practice? Let it be part of the regulation that governs, women's health care. There's more to just, to healthcare, women's healthcare than all that we're talking about. Women need to be nurtured because they are nurturers themselves. And who is going to do it? All of us together. When we speak in one voice, when we bring the attention to the world, when we let people know who we are and what we do, when we bring them, challenge them, nudge them to invite us, make them realize that women, that we are still part of it. We are part of this system. We are part of the world that it needs, that has the right also to live and live healthy. Besides, women bring a whole lot to both our economy or social life, however you want to look at it, that women play very critical role. And so I am just sharing this information and inviting all of us to listen, and not only listen, but find ways to be part of this war. I want to call it war because it's ending in not so good a situation. It's ending in mortality. It's ending in morbidity. A lot of women that have postpartum issues right now, postpartum diabetes, postpartum high blood pressure, postpartum cardiac failure. And all of this are all situations that are chronic. They become chronic, they debilitate women, they debilitate their families. It impacts how they live their life. So the quality of life is equally impacted. So I just want to share so all of us would be aware of what is going on, and recognize that we live in a world, we live in a country where we have everything. Everything is available, but healthcare is not accessible to a lot of women, and especially the women of color, immigrant women. And we are asking ourselves, how do we bring this healthcare that is available to the doorstep of this population we are talking about? Usually on this podcast, I usually leave my podcast open. When we have speakers, after they speak, we leave it open for people to make comments, have questions. You are allowed to ask your questions, have contributions. This is the time for you to come in and chip in, to this conversation, because it is really heartbreaking. Women are simply dying. Babies are simply dying. It shouldn't happen, but unfortunately, that is the reality. What do you guys think? How do you think we can collectively find solution to this situation?
Are you talking about impoverished areas? Like areas where people don't have health care and don't have a lot of funds?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are talking about areas where people have, like you said, they don't have a whole lot of housing. Housing is another issue. That is the third one that I did mention. So they don't have enough transportation money to get to where the healthcare is located. Most of the birthing homes that are located at the outskirts of the cities are being closed. And I have questioned, why are they closing those areas? And when you close those areas, how do you expect women who live in those areas to access healthcare? So that's a concern.
Yeah, we have to go to the legislation and say something.
Yes. That's what I say too, that we should, say something to them. I know a few people have really, marched in Washington, D.C., and I know it's not something you just do once, because that once or twice doesn't cut it. People tend to forget, because there are a whole lot of need in our world today, but we know that the women's own need is critical, because it impacts every other person. It impacts the whole community, impacts the whole, global, community. So that's why, for me, this has become an urgent need that we must address. In whatever we're talking about, whoever we meet on our daily activities, that we want to take a little bit of time to even ask whether they're really aware of what is going on. Because some of these issues are not even talked about. People are too busy talking about other stuff, which are really important. When you talk about inflation, for example, every single person in this country right now is feeling it. And if all of us are feeling it, then can you imagine what a pregnant woman with few other little kids, single moms, how are they coping with this condition? So anyone has anything to add? Thank you so much, Molly, for what you've, points you've just made there, your contribution.
This is a very important topic.
I'm not positive the Georgia legislation will see this as prevalent. There are a lot of southern states or southern cities in Georgia which have mothers with single mothers that aren't coping too well on raising children, but I don't think it's a big enough issue to talk about.
You know why it's not a big enough issue? Because too many people are not talking about it. That's why it's not, enough issue to talk about. And that's why I'm bringing it to this platform. Because honestly, until you start talking about stuff, people wouldn't know what you're talking about. I don't know up until now, if you've even heard, that this is an issue and that is an increasing concern. Many of us are not even aware of it. A woman passes away in the hospital. How many times do you even hear that this lady was in labor? They took her to the hospital. She didn't make it. How many times do we even hear about that? But it happens every single day in the United States. It's not talked about much, unfortunately. And this issue is as well, like I said, it's a global issue. It's not just the issue that concerns only the United States. The only reason I'm bringing it up here on this platform is that we live in a country, like I just mentioned, that I feel is capable of handling this situation, but it's getting out of hand.
Do you think it affects the other countries worse than the US? Or do you think it's about the same?
So from research, unfortunately, there are some developing countries that bet that their maternal mortality rate is lower, way lower than what is going on in the United States. Yet when it comes to healthcare, we have the top notch, we have the best, but women are not getting access to it. It is there, it's available, but they can't access it.
Africa?
No, well, in Africa, that's a different story. We know that it's not available for sure. And of course, if it's not available, you can't access it. So that's a different issue also, a concern that we have all this mortality, high mortality that nobody's talking about.
So what are you saying, that outside countries have a lower mortality rate than the US, or the US has lower than other countries?
No, the US, unfortunately, is really recording high in mortality rate, maternal mortality and infant mortality rate. And it's increasing by the year. It doesn't seem to decrease. That's the concern.
That's just so weird, because you think of the US as being like this almighty country, and
Yeah.
I guess it's not.
Yeah, it is. The question is, where are we missing the point? That is the question I'm asking. Where are we missing it? Because we have to identify it if we're going to actually take care of it. We got to identify where the problem is. What is really happening? That even people are not aware of it. So what is actually going on? And what do we think we should do?
They don't teach it in schools. That could be changed. We've got to tell children as young as middle school and high school about the consequences of the women who I'm not sure where I'm going with this.
Yeah, there are 5 of us here, so others can chip in. We all are aware of what is going on. So what do we think? What do we think should be done? I agree with you, Molly, that we should catch them young. We should start at an early age.
Yeah, so they don't make the same mistakes when they get older. And we gotta make sure they all have health care. That could be a legislative thing.
Anna, do you have any comments?
I'm sorry.
Do you have any comments?
To
Wait,
start talking about.
hold on. Well, I think the healthcare in this country is terrible. I mean, I'm a senior, I'm on Social Security, but when I hear about the plans and they don't cover this and that, and it's horrible. It's just a disgrace of this country to have terrible health care. I mean, if you go to Europe, healthcare is free, but this country, it's a business. I hate to say this, it's big business with insurance companies, and it's just awful. I mean, that's how I feel. It's all about the money.
Yes, yes. And I think when that just did not happen, Hannah, you're absolutely correct. When you look at the history of our country, it has always been that a whole thing of entrepreneurship. Everybody wants to make profit out of everything. And so healthcare has become that booming business that, that's going to be no end to it. You talk about England and Europe, yes, and even Canada here. Their healthcare system is way, way better than what you see here. Is everybody gets taken care of, and preventative care, primary health care is the key.
Right.
That is what we need in this country. Primary health care should be the key, because this is where you catch it. Once we get into all this levels of tertiary institutions, and then all this you talk about, okay, the interventions that must be done, if we can prevent them at the primary level, we may not have, that whole energy that we are wasting up there. Why we should really channel our energy at the grassroots and make sure whatever it is that needed to be fixed is getting fixed at that primary level. But that's not happening here. I know some states that are already, doing well. Few states are really have taken it. Some states, few states, California is one of them, have really taken it seriously and making sure that every single community, women are being taken care of. They have not only birthing centers, they have improved their doula services. They have also, some of them have incorporated them in the hospitals. So that way, we recognize the work that doulas do. So when women come to the hospitals or into the birthing centers, they're being aligned with other doulas, who can help them as they leave the hospital, because the care after you have your baby does not just end in the hospital. In fact, that's where it starts. Once you leave the hospital, the real care resumes. So, and who is going to help you do that? There are these people we're talking about. And they are the ones who would notice that, oh, this lady went home yesterday, today, this is what is going on with her and her baby. And she will make that intervention early by calling, whoever the doctor is or whoever the midwife is, and they take it from there before it gets to emergency room or stuff like that. But no, that is not happening. A lot of things that is happening now is that people run to the emergency room, like they run to fetch water or they run to, get at the grocery shop. That's not what it should be. Our healthcare system is turned upside down, and it is our responsibility as citizens to make sure that we get back to basics. And I think that's what this conversation is about tonight.
Claire, do you have any comments?
Maybe a little bit more than you do, Emily, but we'll see where I go with this now. But Zita, I have a 10-year experience with pre-hospital care and the different levels through which ambulances can be staffed. And as EMTs, we were prepared to be in the situation of, if a mother was ready to give birth, during our response on the ambulance, kind of what we do if it's time for the baby to be born while they're in our ambulance. And there's different levels of being an EMT, a basic, an IV tech, a paramedic, and stuff like that. And one thing that they pointed out to us is like, in our states here in the US, or just the dynamic between urban and rural, it's kind of I don't know if we'd call it a double-edged sword, but kind of, I don't know if it'd be ironic or what we'd call it, but in the cities, there tends to be a pretty good availability of paramedics, and then also hospitals, so that if for any emergency response that they're getting paramedic care for a short transport to the hospital. Whereas, in the rural areas, it might be more EMT basic qualification and then a long ride to the hospital. So it's kind of like a double whammy, out in some rural areas. And so that's something that they tried to address. So I bring this up because you're in the business of training doulas, and I'll say for our daughter, in terms of what you do as a midwife, and that doulas are out there in terms of where I'm at and in our life and with our daughter. I mean, it never entered into the space of thought, that what you do or a doula or any of this, comes into picture. So I'm seeing something for me to learn a little bit more about in terms of, like you say, the trend of the maternal mortality or the infant mortality. Are we finding that mothers are continuing to have babies at a later age? I mean, are they taking on risks like this that are contributing it? Are there like some lifestyle correlations that, I mean, is it entirely on, the response taken in the birthing situation, or are there secondary factors that are factoring in because of where our lifestyle is going here in the United States?
Yeah, that's a good question, Kat. So what we're finding is with civilization and women empowerment, we are noticing that more and more women are having their babies later, than normal. I wouldn't call it normal than, they at times prior to now. That you have in the past several years, women will start having babies. Some will as early as even 19, 20 years. We're still seeing some of that, but we're seeing more of what we called elderly primates. and that is an elderly primate is a woman having a first baby when she's 25 years and above. So we are getting that more and more right now. In fact, you're seeing some women in their 40s who are having their first babies. So some of these women are accomplished women. These are women that really put their profession, or for some reason, we're not in the mood to have babies. But then they are, wanting babies at a later age for whatever reason, we don't know. But that's what we're finding. And then that is help them actually leading to, because when you're talking about younger age and older age of having babies, you're talking about high risk pregnancies. Those are the ones we classify as high risk. So a woman who is having her baby after 30 years is considered her first baby, is considered a high risk, because you're looking at her body, adjusting to a whole lot at that age. And she, even mentally, might not be in the same position if she were like 6 years before that, trying to get herself physically and mentally ready to have a baby. So yeah, and then what happens is that some of those conditions will make the women, they're filled with other things going on in their lives. They have other stress in addition to the pregnancy stress. And we are also finding that most of these women are single moms. And this puts a woman into a more needy and problematic situation, because when a woman is pregnant, she needs the whole village, she needs the whole family to rally around her. Then can you imagine a woman being pregnant, she's 32 or 33 or 35 or even 40, living by herself. She doesn't have any family member. Even the father of the baby might not be, around. So all of this will increase the stress level. And what does stress level do to a woman? It increases that stress hormone, it elevates it higher, and they develop high blood pressure. And before you know it, preeclampsia presents itself. And a lot of them have a climactic fit while they're having the baby, or while they're, even if we're doing the cesarean intervention, you still find out that that impact will happen to that woman, if not during, but after she has her baby. So yes, being pregnant in older age or even early age are some of the factors that are contributing to the high mortality. But in overall, if a woman has access to health care and understands she's being guided, she's being directed, she's being assisted, and supported with all the resources she needs, no matter how old she is, especially family support, community support, no matter how old she is, she will find someone in that community who will really support her and make sure that she has her baby safe and secure. But if you don't have access to that health care, everything else falls apart. That is what we're finding.
Yeah, so I think in some direct way, what Molly was saying before, she ended up saying she didn't know where she was going with it, but I think it really does point out, because if you really think about the outside world, aside from whatever a young lady or a woman in her 20s or whatever is thinking, it's almost like, from what you're saying, we kind of build in that. I'm almost hearing, like, if you think of the encouragement with students that they go through college. So say you're in your mid-20s by the time you're post-college, and then it sounds like there's some benefit to start having children by the time you're 30, so like between 25 and 30 is kind of, by society's prescription your childbearing years. But obviously everything we're talking about is everybody's journey in life is like way veering away from that. And so that's kind of where I wonder if you go back decades, maybe the way we lived back in the 50s and 60s and 70s and so forth, maybe there was a higher percentage of women having children between the ages of 25 and 30, where now, like you're saying, we're seeing this trend towards 40 years of age. That changes the biology, and that changes, kind of, the experience and the medical response, and, what might show up, like I was talking about for our EMTs around the world and so forth, so I guess with what you do, doing the work that you're building up, where you're building capacities to train doulas, can you describe a little bit about, the contribution to this issue that is, and like what the scale of this is to you, in terms of like with Zita's Healthy Beginnings and having this education and certification and being ready for this preparation and having the qualifications of a doula, like kind of how is that tackling this issue, and what's the scale of it? Like how many doulas do you think in your life, Zita, that you're going to be a part of seeing trained?
I would, thanks for the question. 2 weeks ago, I was talking with a woman, and she was 32 years old, or she's 32 years old, pregnant for the first time. She lives in Canada. And she asked me, do you think that I really need a doula? Because I guess she knows me now as a Zita and doula. So she's like, I hear you talk about doula, you need a doula, midwife and all that. She said, do you think I need a doula? I said to her, yes. And I said, I'm going to tell you why. Now, this lady is well educated. She has a master's degree. And you can, she has a wonderful career. And I said to her, you know why I said you need a doula? There are certain things that happens in your body, before you got pregnant, that you were very much comfortable with, that you weren't even aware that is something that you need to pay attention to. But because you had no baby, in your tummy at that time, wasn't a problem. You kept going. And now, all of a sudden, you find yourself growing this baby. There are certain things that even mentally, you can't figure out anymore. Given all your education, you still cannot figure it out. And instead of you feeling so weird, feeling upset, because that's what happens to most women, most mature women who get pregnant at that age, they're like, why am I acting like this? This is even stupid. This doesn't even make sense to me. Yes, it won't make sense to you because you have never been in that situation in your whole life. That's the first time. So you need someone by your side who will tell you, who reminds you, wait a minute, you're no longer who you used to be. You have something growing within you. And in some cases, it's more than one. And the question is, how do I take care of myself as well as whatever it is I'm carrying, whether it's a 1 baby, 2 babies, 12 babies, or whatever. And that's where you need that person who can always sit by your side, remind you things that you would never have thought about. That's very critical. Sometimes we overlook them. We think they are not important, and they are. One of the things that this lady said to me that made me say to her, you need a doula, was she said, whenever I get tired so easily and I don't even know why, and I feel this shouldn't be. And whenever I put my feet on the floor, by the time I get up from my office, my feet is all swollen. And I'm like, what is actually going on? And I say to her, you see, these are the things that even when you talk to a doula, she understands better. She will remind you, simple things as when you're in your office, can you put a little chair or even a box to elevate your legs? Because what is going on is you're having poor circulation because of the gravity. So some of those things you think you know it all, but you don't. Actually, you need someone else to remind you, to say, you stop and think. These are the areas. So I know that especially for this population we're talking about, getting a doula, getting somebody who will help them at their own comfort level and not be a threat. Because what happens is when a woman is going to the hospital, her blood pressure is already shooting high, even before she sees a midwife or a doctor. Why? Because of the fear of unknown. But if you have a doula who is there with you, you can call her, talk to her. She comes to your house, however you want to relate with her. You're free to do that. These are also fellow women. In most cases, they have gone through what you're going through. So they might be sharing from their own experience. So these are very critical. And I have, seen it being used. And I know those who have utilized doulas find that very helpful. So I can't really emphasize much about the need for doulas. And I actually feel that every single woman who is pregnant should get a doula. Every single mother who is breastfeeding her baby or plans to breastfeed her baby or nursing a baby between 1 and 2 years should actually have somebody, a doula, who will really support her. You think you don't need their support? I'm telling you, when you get one, you will agree with me that you need. And when we talk about every single woman, there's too many women. So we need too many doulas as well to go around. And we don't have them. Right now, a doula serves about 800 or 700 women. Can you imagine that? It's impossible for one doula to take care of that, that number of women. So yes, my own plan and my vision is to train hundreds and thousands of doulas because I know the need is great, especially in our Western world where we are all set in this whole part of you need to fly at the seat of your pants, and it's not necessary, but that's what is going on. We can't help it in most cases, but if you have people like doulas, they help you to stop and think. Some of them can even help you hold that baby when you're out of your mind, trying to really not appreciate your baby because of the stress, the external stress coming at you, that you have someone like a doula who will tell you this too shall pass. So that's I'm hoping to do more of, that education, training, advocacy to make sure that we recognize the need for more doulas in our society. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great. It brings me to, where do you see the health insurance system on this? I'm not familiar with health insurance covering doulas, but am I just outside of that setting where it actually is happening and I just don't know it, or is that an issue?
It is an issue. Most insurance companies are still dragging their legs to get that incorporated, to get that covered. I know 1 or 2 insurance companies that have really embraced that, but majority of them, they're still, like what Hannah said, it's all about business and money. Some are still counting how much can they gain from a doula. You have to prove what the doula does. And sometimes there are things that you can't really measure, quantify by just, looking at it, or by just, that we know they work, they work. And, but because everybody's focused on that $9, they want to make sure that we're all figuring it out in dollars. And if you cannot figure it out in dollars, it does not exist. Yeah. Hi, Hannah. You have your hands up.
Thank you. Would you say, like, when my daughter who worked full-time, she's a guidance counselor, when she had her children, she had a nanny.
Mhm.
Are there is that the same thing as a doula? She had a nanny. When, I'm not sure if insurance paid for a couple of weeks of her having, but she definitely had someone there in the very, very beginning. And then, of course, is that considered a nanny? The doula?
So I don't know really, because some people might not like doula. The title is becoming, becoming a household name. It
Mhm.
wasn't like that earlier. So I don't know. It could be that person was a doula, but she thought because nanny is common, they called her a nanny. But actually, doulas are being certified. So they have a license to do what they are trained to do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if these people have a license, but yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, a doula is there to take care of the baby or to take care of the mother, or both?
Both.
Both. Yeah.
Both. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, where would you find these doulas?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oof. So they are there, but they're not many. There are not too many of them. That's why we're talking about training more doulas. These
Right.
women are there in the communities, but they're very scarce in the rural areas. And that's why we feel when we go to, dealing with rural communities and leaders, we want them to recognize the need for these women. And if we can get more women to be trained and certified as doulas, that really will help us when we're talking about the primary health care. These are the kind of people we need, to help us to enhance and expand and that level of primary health care, because they really help and they know their stuff and they're being trained to do what they do.
Right. Well, and my daughter lived in the city. So she, when both her children were born, she was living in the city for many years.
Mhm.
But she always had, especially when she was working, she always had, a nanny taking care of the baby or whatever.
Mhm.
But, in rural areas, right? Like I don't live in the city. So I see people here, their mothers help them, their grandmothers help them. But yeah, it would be so good to know about doulas. I don't
Mhm.
think we know much in our rural community about doulas.
Right, they're not. We
No.
don't have enough of them, and that's why we're bringing that as a need, to have more of them, and then to have them being recognized by insurance companies, and to really reward them for the work they do.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for all your contributions. Anyone has questions or any more comment before we wrap it up?
Well, I guess I'm just hearing what I've become aware of in healthcare management. We're kind of seeing more of a trend, in specialties and so forth. So like with a doctor, they're creating a trend where doctors are going to oversee more patients because they have the medical assistants and the nurses, and it's a little bit more of a wider span of licensing in terms of like the number of patients you see, but it's very doable because more people are going to serve patients, but it's going to be with a lot more brevity. So I really see what you're doing, Zita, really fitting in to the trend of healthcare, which also is like being pre-hospital care. We became aware of the trend that more is going to be done out in the field because they're seeing a lot of economic and then practical success by being able to do more in someone's home. Or like when I was going to the hospital, the paramedic was able to do a lot more for me, so that more was on board, more was done. So by the time you got to that ER staff, that paramedic is saying, you know, like more is done, which means that I was using less of the ER's resources when I went through the door. You know, and I believe that, you know, in terms of, you know, even with birthing centers and so forth, you know, that I'm guessing that that's going to be playing into the fact that when you're transporting a mother to a birthing hospital, that what's happening from when they're realizing they're having contractions and everything, you know, the EMTs are going to be able to do more prepping them for what they're doing when they're at the hospital. So it's kind of interesting to hear what you're doing and how it plays into my experience.
Yeah.
But Dr. Emmanuel, I guess, has something.
Yeah, I see his hand up. You want to say, please unmute yourself.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, thank you all so very much. I've really been listening to this topic. It's such an exciting topic. And Zita, thank you so much for all you do, especially for women and the world of women. I mean, I know that this has been your childhood, interest. It's just a kind of contribution towards one of the factors concerning the, maternal mortality. Another factor you mentioned, elderly primates, and then stress as a result of being single moms and their pregnancy. Another factor again that is usually a prevailing factor is economic status. Yeah, because people of low socioeconomic status, people who dropped out of school, they are not interested in having a proper education about what pregnancy is all about. So they don't have proper antenatal or prenatal services. So as a result of that, some of them come down with some other situations that make them, before they get to receive or take medical treatment, they're already coming down with complications. And then it becomes a kind of an emergency on their lives. I know most of them come down with preeclampsia. Could happen in a young lady. It happen too, because age, we've seen that people of, elderly primates are more prone to that, but still you can record preeclampsia, in younger, women. So that is why, early prenatal services is very important. But we discovered that women from low socioeconomic status, they are not prone, especially in this part of the world where insurance or all these things are a factor. But we discovered that most of them who are school dropouts, they get pregnant, they have unplanned pregnancy, unwanted pregnancy, and these are the things that can lead to maternal mortality in pregnancy. I'm just contributing that. Thank you also very much.
Thank you. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, so I'm glad that we all are on the same page when it comes to maternal mortality, that it is a concern. It is a global concern, as I said, but it is also more so a local concern here for us in the United States. And we have all talked about what are the contributing factors. We have also looked at what the solutions are. And I know that if we are collectively focused on how to resolve this, that is doable. It's a matter of talking about it. It's a matter of finding people of like minds, legislative. It's a matter of just taking action. Just like every other thing, nothing gets done when we all keep quiet and mind our own business. No, because high mortality of mother and child is it's a sad situation. It's an indicative of lack of responsibility, actually. And it's like you're ignoring the whole human race. That's what that means. And if we are doing that, what do we think of our future? What are we really going to pass on to the next generation as people? So I'm glad we're talking about this, and I will ask that we all keep talking about it with our friends, our families, and know that this is a reality. This is what we're going through right now. And it is sad to say it's on the increase. It's not reducing. So given all the things we have talked about as the cause, question is, how can we begin to resolve these issues? Because yes, we can do it. It's very simple, but it's not always easy, you know, to resolve. So I'm glad that we all are here and have shared. And please, as a reminder, Zita's Healthy Beginnings with a World of Women podcast. It's every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And we are very glad to the World of Ability podcast in collaboration with Transform You Network and PAC for their generosity. Always, they're open to help us use this platform to reach our audience. And we're thankful to their services. And I want to say thank you again. And until we meet next week, Tuesday, stay safe, enjoy your week. Thank you. Bye-bye.